Hey, good evening, guys, and welcome to episode 38 of the Josh Diaz vlog. Tonight, we're going to possibly cover a wide range of topics and potentially a provocative topic in one that is kind of a current event. So I'm going to start off with a bit of a shout out to the new subscribers, then talk about some things that went down in my life this week, and then again hit on some current events, mainly and most notably the vaccine mandate here in Washington State, and then wrap it up with possibly some selected reading, some lines from Milton Friedman's Free to Choose, and then finish it up with a recap of today, which was a very successful first attempt at our first marriage admin day. So we used Sunday to just take care of some administrative stuff, and I feel like it went really well. I'm excited about it, so I'm happy to share if we get there, if we have enough time. So like I said, first off, I want to give a big shout out to our newest subscriber, Brenda Kempf. So thank you so much, Brenda, for joining. Don't know how you came across it. Don't know what prompted you to give me a shot at grabbing your attention, but I really appreciate it. And I hope that as the weeks roll on, that you don't regret it. And that being said, that makes a total of 15 of us now, or 16, including myself, as part of this little community, and that's very exciting to me. And I don't know if YouTube has notified me every time a new person has come through, so if I've missed you and haven't given you a shout out, I apologize. Feel free to put that in the comments, and I would love to again acknowledge anyone who is generous enough to follow along. So with that housekeeping out of the way, let's move into this week. So I figured it would be relevant maybe to just give a little bit of an update on how the week went, some highlights, some lowlights, and kind of go from there. Well, I guess the only reason being is because, let's work our way backwards, because today, it's relevant because today should have been, I want to say, my 13th high intensity training workout, the Mike Menser program, the lifting program that I mentioned and detailed on my last video. And so today should have been workout 13 from that, but I pushed it off a day. So I'd been contemplating, I did my workout in the middle of the week, which would have been on, I believe, Wednesday was my last workout, and I was already pretty smoked heading into that one. And so I was on the fence about even doing that one, but I executed and had a decent workout, hit the numbers I was trying to hit. So I wasn't mad at that, but I definitely was not on my A game. And heading into today, I had been feeling under the weather for the last few days, and so if I sneeze on camera, I apologize. And I had a workout scheduled for today, but I had just been feeling terrible and would have been resting all weekend and kind of was waiting to see how it would pan out. And this morning woke up and I didn't wake up till mid-morning, later than I normally do any day of the week, and I felt a lot better, but figured, you know what, I'll take care of the things I want to today and push it off one day. That's something that Mike recommends, is that if you're not feeling 100% from your last workout, hey, take an extra day to rest, because that's the most important part, is to put the demand on the muscle and then give your body enough time to rest and grow. And so that's why I figured it was worth mentioning, because I've been super diligent. I haven't missed or pushed a single day in the last approximately 6 weeks, but today I pushed it to tomorrow, but I but I think it was a reasonable decision and not one out of laziness. And kind of working our way backwards, I think a lot of what fed into that was, starting from last Sunday, where I moved with a friend of a friend 6 tons of broken up concrete that Sunday. I was pretty sore the next couple days. Then I had 2 hard nights of jiu-jitsu training and then a decent workout on Wednesday. And so heading into Thursday, we had a company-wide Mariners baseball game. So we took the day off of work and headed downtown as a team, hit a bar on the way, and watched the Mariners game. And we were sitting outside all day, baking in the sun. It's been pretty smoky in the area, which I will never admit that affects my sinuses or my allergies or anything like that. So I'm not going to claim that has anything to do with it, but that is a fact about what the climate's been doing up here. And maybe we'll cover climate change tonight too, because that came up with a buddy of mine via Instagram. So maybe we'll come back to that. So heading into Thursday, sitting in the hot sun of the Mariners game, was baking away, and by the end of the day, I was just feeling not great to begin with. But then I had jiu-jitsu practice that night, and I thought, okay, I'm feeling pretty zapped from just sitting in the sun and herding a bunch of drunk cats, as I was the only sober one trying to direct traffic. And I thought, okay, I'll head into practice tonight, but I'll just kind of take it easy, no big deal. And it turned out to be Ivan, our coach, Ivan Salivary, former UFC fighter, and all around great guy, had fallen back on his Marine drill instructor, DNA, and absolutely destroyed us. And it was one of the hardest practices I've ever done, and it just smoked me. And that's when I woke up Friday morning not feeling great, and it took me a day or two to just kind of for my system to reset. And I'm feeling a lot better today. By the end of the day, we just my lady and I just had a delicious home cooked meal, and so I'm feeling good, feeling ready to hit it hard tomorrow, back in the gym. So that being said, let's maybe jump to the end, to the admin day, because I think that's pretty relevant, and it's something I'm a little bit excited, because I just mentioned that we had a good meal. Well, prior to that, so again, we've been working out. Let's say this, working out a lot of relationship kinks lately. Not like anything's going wrong, not like anything's in despair or anything like that, but again, we're both young people, have been in a long committed relationship, and have goals and dreams and aspirations for our life. And one second, let me put this, you know what, I'm not gonna mess with it. We both have goals and aspirations for our life, and so at times we have to realign. But if we go weeks or months without ever realigning, it's easy to fall out of alignment. And so this week, after a couple of conversations, again, just realizing, hey, we're not aligned right now. It occurred to me that, hey, if it turned out it was a few months ago, because we had done February and then sort of attempted April to do a budget, to do a household budget. So February we did a look back, April we attempted to do a look forward, and then never looked at it since. So it's been April, May, June, July, August. Yeah, so it's been 4 or 5 months since we've aligned on the topic of money and finance, which is insane to think about. And so it occurred to me that, hey, starting out, if we want to get on the same page and we want to get on a budget, we have to do it weekly. And that's something, again, drawing on kind of the Dave Ramsey model. That's something he kind of recommends to people who, it's funny because he recommends it to people who are either bad with money or in a really tough spot, those are the people he says, hey, every week you need to be looking at this. And so it was kind of funny because it just, both of us are natural savers, and we're in a pretty comfortable spot when it comes to money, all of these things. And so it had never occurred to me to really tighten it up that much, but I realized that that the most important thing, it's not a matter of whether we're doing good or bad with money. The most important thing is whether we're doing good or bad with each other, and that if we're doing bad, that hey, we need to tighten it up, and that the only way we're going to get a handle on things is to really tighten it up and do it on a weekly basis. Because then once we're in a rhythm with it, once it's on our mind all the time and week over week, and we're checking in, and we've got a really good system and a really good plan going, then we can dial it back to maybe once every other week, or doing just a once a month budget session, but then maybe we're checking in here or there. And even today, I think we had a bit of a breakthrough, because we realized that, hey, both of us do check the bank account throughout the month. So what we need to do is heading into a given month, set the budget moving forward, and put just that amount into the account, because then as we go throughout the month, we're both going to see that number going down throughout the month. So I think that was a big aha moment for me, realizing that, hey, we don't have to crunch a bunch of numbers or exhaust her with all the nerdy stuff that I could do numbers and read math and mess around with it all night long because it's fun to me. But once we get a good 30 minutes or an hour into this, I'm seeing eyes glaze over, and rightfully so, because we both are just into different aspects of this. So I guess that was, I think, just a huge win for us. So we have a plan for the rest of this month. We have a plan for this week, so we have a plan for this week and next week to finish out the last 2 weeks of August. And kind of part of this whole method that we've come up with has been to designate Sundays just our admin days. So we did our grocery shopping together, which she had been doing alone a fair amount, which sucks to do alone, and you're carrying heavy groceries and things are melting, and you're having to walk around the store by yourself. But hey, if we reserve it to do it Sunday, then we can both take the time to do it. So doing our admin day, so we're doing groceries, we're running laundry, we're doing our budget, and so we checked all those boxes today, and it's refreshing, and it feels like a good reset again, coming off the heels of not being aligned. So that was just one thing that I wanted to share on kind of the relationship front. Not trying to act like we have it all figured out. I'm sure we're gonna stumble and fall over and over and over again. And that was actually a cool thing about yesterday evening. We had a good friend over that we did dinner with and hosted them, and they were so, or she, I should say, was so generous and kind to, and flattering, I guess would be the word, to say, hey, you guys have been together for a while. What do you guys feel like your secret to success is, right? Which again is a bit flattering, because hey, it's not like we're subject matter experts by any means, but we've gutted it out. We've been together for a number of years, not trying to pose as anything we're not. But hey, we've been together for a handful of years. We've made some things work, and so we took some time last night to reflect on all the ways that we've made it work. And one thing worth sharing, because this I think was the biggest takeaway for me that I did share with this good friend of ours, was years ago I read, and let's see what it's called, John Gottman. Yeah, here we go. So years ago I listened to, I'm pretty sure it was actually on Audible, that I listened to this book, The 7 Principles for Making a Marriage Work. And for me, what was awesome about this book is it was clinical research. It was very data driven. As much as it can be, I'm sure. I don't know if it would necessarily, because he's an American psychologist. So let's see if psychology is a social science. Psychology. And here it comes. So I hope it's not the Delta variant, but okay. So psychology is the science of mind and behavior. Just want to know if it's considered a social science. Let's see. Let's just ask Google the question. Let's say, is psychology a social science? Okay, so one random site called bestcolleges.com says most colleges classify psychology as a social science. So yeah, there you go. Bridging, psychology deals with human mind behavior, bridging the divide between social science and natural science. So, I think it's worth pointing out because turns out epidemiology is a social science. Turns out economics is a social science, and psychology is a social science. And so I think that's worth acknowledging because there's just a difference in, and I think the way we should regard information that's delivered to us through, I guess, would natural social science versus natural science. Okay, so science can be classified into 2 main branches: natural science and social science. The main difference is that natural studies natural events, whereas social science studies the human society. Okay, well, we'll leave it at that. I guess to explain or to share, I think maybe what my bias is, that to me it seems like natural sciences at least have the, what's the word I want to use here, have the tendency or the ability to be more empirical. That's just my bias, in that because social sciences to me seem so much more complex, so much harder to control, studies or distill results. Again, I'm not a scientist and I don't exist in either of these fields, but just as a broad brush statement, to me it seems that's my bias. It seems like natural sciences could be a little bit more concrete, a little bit more empirical, and that at times social sciences can provide useful information without being as empirical or as rigid or concrete. But that's just again kind of a layman's bias without really knowing this stuff that well. So if I'm wrong, please let me know. set me straight, because all of that to say, circling back to this John Gottman book, that hey, even though it's a social science, I still think that approaching this topic in an empirical way and studying it in a clinic and in as controlled of an environment as possible, and it being marriages and relationships and what make a good and a bad relationship and what makes things work and what makes things fall apart, I think there's a lot of value to that, and that this guy made it his life and his trade. So he, it's in the about that pops up on Google. John Mordecai Gottman is an American psychological researcher and clinician who did extensive work over 4 decades on divorce prediction and marital stability. He's an award-winning speaker, author, and professor emeritus in psychology. So I listened to that book years ago, and I found it extremely useful. I remember some of the things that still stick to me today was one of the things that I think just one of the nuggets that I remember from this book was this kind of concept of mirroring. And I don't even remember if that's exactly what the terminology he used, but it was this idea that good partners, that if their partner is in an emotional state, if they're angry or if they're sad or if they're upset or things like that, that they will kind of mirror that back to them, right? And so the opposite of that being, hey, if your partner's angry, that I'm going to be laughing and smiling and just you're angry, so be it. And that's a very upsetting thing. And so one thing that I've tried to do to be a good partner is that if my partner is upset and concerned, that I'm gonna show that, hey, the fact that you're upset, I'm there with you. I'm concerned and upset too. Let's figure this out, right? To some degree. And I thought that was just one small thing I remember. There was a handful of really good things, but anyhow, not like I'm a relationship expert, but this is a subject that came up yesterday evening, and I would say for anyone who is looking to refine their outlook when it comes to relationships or marriages, this would be a really great place to start in this book, a practical guide from the country's foremost relationship expert. That's the 7 principles for making a marriage work. And let's see, I want to see if there's just a quick review. Let's see if there's just something. Let's see, 7 principles. Okay. Yeah, let's dive into this because it's really good. So this is just on the Wikipedia page. So the 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work is a 1999 book by John Gottman, which details 7 principles for couples to improve their marriage, and the, quote, 4 horsemen, end quote, to watch out for that usually herald the end of a marriage. The book was based on Gottman's research in the Family Research Lab, known as the, quote, Love Lab, unquote, where he observed more than 650 couples over 14 years, right? And so that to me is where hey, even if it's a social science, even if there's certain things you just can't possibly do empirically, that's a guy who's had a lot of repetitions, right? That's Kobe has taken 650,000 shots from that spot in the 3-point line. He's going to learn something. He's going to lock some things in. So I think overview. Okay, yeah, let's it's a super short article, so we'll just read the overview and then the 7 principles. So the overview. The 7 principles for making marriage work. Gottman argues that the basis for a happy marriage is a deep friendship with mutual respect and a positive attitude. He also emphasizes the importance of emotional intelligence in couples. In the course of the book, Gottman details 7 principles for couples to follow in order to nurture their friendship and improve their marriage, in order to help them endure during challenging times. These principles include enhancing their, quote, love maps, nurturing their... Okay, so... I was going to skip over... I'm skipping over the principles because he'll mention that in the next section, but it also says... Gottman also writes about the, quote, 4 horsemen that are important to minimize and avoid. 1, criticism. 2, defensiveness. 3, contempt. And 4, stonewalling. Man, so this is bringing back a lot of memories. But I remember this one, stonewalling, that was like a big deal, and it was to the point where, again, you're on this spiral, the 4 horses, you're on this kind of downward spiral of the relationship getting out of control, and stonewalling is basically just putting up a brick wall to where if your partner has concerns or they're criticizing you or all of these things, and you just are to the point where, like, hey, you no longer care, you're just putting up a wall, and insulating yourself from that sort of thing. So at least that's what I remember. So the 7 principles, here we go. Number 1, share love maps. Explanation. This is where all the information learned about our partners gets stored. One example of information gathered and stored is things that they like and things that they dislike. And so it's funny because some of this stuff is, it's so simple or whatever, but it's a big deal to, he talks about, this idea of like sitting down and sharing and kind of having understanding your partner's dreams and aspirations and what they want out of life. So here we go. 2, nurture your fondness and admiration. This is showing that you care about the other person and focusing on and acknowledging the positives. The basis for this starts in friendship. 3, turn towards each other instead of away. This is doing things together and showing the other person that they are valued. It is taking time to listen and not telling them you don't have time. 4, let your partner influence you. This is sharing the decision making and being willing to both make decisions and respect your partner's decisions. Number 5, solve your solvable problems. This is realizing which problems can be solved and solving them using skills for managing conflict, which include using soften, startup, repair and de-escalation, psychological self-soothing, accepting what you cannot change, accepting influence and compromise. Overcome gridlock. Number 6, overcome gridlock. This is figuring out what is causing a block in your life and taking steps to overcome this block. It does not necessarily mean fixing problems, but taking steps to overcome them. And 7, create shared meaning. This is creating a life that is shared and meaningful for you both. Marriage isn't just about raising kids, splitting chores, and making love. It can also have a spiritual dimension that has to do with creating an inner life together, a culture rich with symbols and rituals, and an appreciation for your roles and goals that link you, that lead you to understand what it means to be part of the family you have become. So, wow, such an awesome book, such awesome content. And I think I'll maybe leave it at that because I'm sure you guys don't want to hear me ramble on and on about this. But again, as far as those handful of super influential books that stick with me and this goes back to a concept, and I really need to come up with like a good name for this. And I'm sure there already is a name for this, like something like first principles. But to me, it just seems like there are people who they're just subject matter experts who've discovered certain truths about the world and about their worldview. So guys that I'm thinking of now, is Chris Voss. This is the hostage negotiator. And, so when he talks about hostage negotiating, or when he talks about negotiating, you can hear with every word and every expression and every thought that he puts out there, you are confident that this guy knows what he's talking about. He's been there, he's done that, he's seen it. So you trust that he is likely to the best available, human knowledge, giving you really good guidance when it comes to and then certain aspects of that are just truths, right? And they existed outside of him, but because he was an expert in this field, he discovered them and he was able to reflect on them and then put them down on paper to then share or record them to then share with the world, right? And so, and I think I've mentioned this on a previous one, Dave Ramsey, these timeless principles, these timeless truths that just they exist, like in the natural world. Like gravity exists, but then it takes time for people to discover them, quantify them, name them. Though that so, but gravity existed before it was. Before Newton came up with an equation for it, right? So, but Newton was the person to, allegedly was the person to quantify it for us, define it for us, and give that to the rest of the world. And so that's how I think about some of these ideas. And why I get so excited when I come across someone to where I go, you have discovered an inherent truth about the world. Peter Schiff is another guy that comes to mind. Again, maybe I'm just libertarian brainwashed and Austrian economics brainwashed. I'm sure the more I learn and the more I will contemplate his ideas, I'll think, okay, hey, maybe he's not right about everything, but there's certain things about what he says, and there's certain truths that that span across other intellectuals along the spectrum, which come down to this idea that, hey, central planning, big governments, that they impede on people's freedoms, they impede on prosperity. And that to me just seems like one of those inherent truths that exists outside of Peter Schiff. It exists outside of any political or ideological movement. But they discover it, and then I get excited when I hear about these things, and then because then you can take the ideology that's on paper and overlay it over the reality of what you see in the real world in that lens, and see, oh yes, the more the government bureaucracy grows and it weaves its way into our lives, the more our freedoms are taken away from us, and the more it slows down progress when it comes to prosperity. I'm just fixing my crazy hair because I'm losing my hair, which is crazy to think. Never thought I'd see the day, but this last year, it's like really thinning out on top, and it's kind of long, and so anytime I touch it, just goes. So there you have it. I get excited about this John Gottman guy because to me it seems like he's discovered some truths that existed about relationships before he ever studied them. But the fact that he studied them, he was able to do that work for us and then share it with the world. So I get excited about that. So we've talked about this week and why I pushed my workout for today. We've talked about my marriage administrative day. And the one topic that was definitely a big topic of my week was, and now we're getting into the maybe provocative portion of the show, is the vaccine mandate. So Washington State just came out with the governor's office, I think it was probably Monday afternoon or early evening, the governor made an announcement along with the King County executive and then the Seattle mayor, came out with an announcement that vaccines will now be a condition of employment for state employees and private healthcare workers. So this is a big deal, and it was something that we kind of saw coming. Again, my wife is a private healthcare worker, and so she had been hearing kind of hubbub, had been hearing some rumblings about this, and even got an email in advance to the announcement that their hospital, hey, they're hearing that this is going to come down, and they will be reviewing this, and they'll keep everyone posted with the policies moving forward. So when the announcement finally happened, I actually listened to the whole, not the whole press conference, but I haven't listened to anything that what I consider to be highly incapable and sad excuse for a governor down in Olympia. I haven't listened to much of what he said since the early portion of the lockdowns last year. After I saw, some of them and sort of saw where things were going, and also oftentimes I would tune in and skip ahead to the question and answer portion just to see what that looked like, and it got to a point where I had seen enough, and but I decided that, hey, this was kind of just a new low, if you will, and that I'm actually gonna tune in and catch Inslee's portion and also the question and answer portion, and no surprises. What was very comical was the rhetoric that was used, and I should have taken more note of it, because it was borderline offensive, and it was definitely condescending and patronizing in the rhetoric that was used from this so-called governor about why this mandate was needed, and he talked about freedom and a lot of things where it was just classic like Orwellian doublespeak, where he was saying the word freedom, but what he meant was the government's going to force you to do something, and the lashings will continue until morale improves. So things along those lines. And so I posted a couple of social media posts that gained a fair amount of traction and initiated a bunch of conversations, and I think there's a few worth mentioning. So the first one that I posted was just a reaction to it, where I said, hey, this is blasphemy. I hope that all healthcare workers and state employees are able to find a way to protest this. So that was the first one that I posted, and then midweek, my mom actually sent me a video that she came across, where it was another individual talking about, and this was the way that they put it, was basically saying, okay, hey, the United States, you have the freedom to choose what you want to do with your own body, but if you choose not to get the vaccine and you get sick, you should not go to the hospital. You should not be given medical treatment because you chose that. You put yourself in that position. So that was the second one. I'm trying to maybe record it. Chose and given care, ? So, and to me, again, so the reason I want to maybe mention a few of these is to talk maybe in a bit more nuance about some of my reactions to this, some of the posts that I made, and a lot of the arguments that I heard back. Again, just sharing where I stand on the matter, not like the world necessarily is dying to know, but hey, this is why I'm doing the channel. So there you go. So that was number 2. And I basically posted a response to that idea, because I've actually heard that before, and it was again from one of my wife's, a Facebook friend, a fellow nurse, had posted on Facebook something to a very similar effect. If you don't get the vaccine, don't expect to get care from me. You're the one putting the rest of us at risk, and so if you get sick, you shouldn't get care. Which is super upsetting to my wife, because again, the whole notion of being in medicine is that you do not discriminate. You give care regardless of who walks through those doors. And so to me, what you kind of need to do is kind of divide all of this out and really distill it down to what principle are we talking about here. So when someone says something like that, you have to forget about all of the context of the COVID and this and that, because ultimately the principle, if you were to distill it down to the principle of what they're saying, this individual is saying that basically, if you don't take the proper preventative care and you fall ill with something that you could have presented, I'm not saying any of that's true, I'm just saying that's what this person is saying. You could have prevented this illness, but you didn't. You voluntarily chose not to, that you shouldn't be given care. Well, that's a principle that, okay, if you truly believe in that principle, then you would have to apply that to any scenario, right? You can't pick and choose and go, just because it's COVID, then I believe in that principle at this moment. But if you apply it to other things, I don't necessarily agree with it, because then you have to go down the list of all of the things that are self-induced that people end up in the hospital for, that they could have avoided if they made different decisions or whatever it is. So hey, obesity, if people are going to the hospital for that, then that was an ailment that was brought on to you by yourself, your own eating habits. You should have not put yourself in that position, and therefore you shouldn't get medical care. I'm not saying that is the case, but I'm saying if you carry that person's logic to other things, that it would apply across the board. That people got in the comments of this video and came up with even better examples. Okay, well, so if you get lung cancer, but you were a smoker your whole life, you shouldn't. You're taking up resources that you could have, healthcare resources that you could have avoided if you just made better decisions. So therefore, you should be refused care. There's a couple other really good ones. And then I had someone come in and say, hey, nice try, but this isn't something that hurts anyone else, right? Okay, well then, and I didn't use this example right off the bat because I don't equate the two. But then the next example is, okay, a drunk driver. If a drunk driver runs off the road and kills a couple of people and injures themselves, when they're taken to the hospital, they are still given care, right? You could have avoided being injured by not drinking, and definitely not drinking and driving. That was a personal choice that you made. So if you're carrying that person's logic to each of these different subjects, then that would have to be your answer each and every time. So because this person, I would imagine if they're a sensible person, would go, oh, okay, well, no, it doesn't apply to this situation, doesn't apply to that situation, then I would hope that they would admit, okay, you know what, you're right. I feel strongly about this, but we really shouldn't be discriminating against anyone for any reason when it comes to medical care. And there's maybe more of a debate there. I mean, if you're just talking about, I'm sure you could come up with examples again, like a rapist pedophile who hurts himself doing something or another. It's like, yeah, let's skip the hospital and just take him right to the alley and end their life, right? So there's certain, I mean, you could get maybe a little bit more nuanced than that, but just in a general sense, that the way that healthcare is structured today and the oath that our healthcare workers take today, about not discriminating against patients and giving the best care possible to everyone that walks through the door. I think that's a pretty decent policy, and we shouldn't start breaking that down and eroding that away because of the current flavor of the month and the hysteria that's around the coronavirus or the vaccine. So that was the second one that I posted that gained a fair amount of feedback. And then the third one that I posted was because of the first one where I in the beginning of the week where I said, hey, this is terrible. I really hope people are able to protest this. Hey, let's push back. This is wrong. A bunch of people got on there and said, yep, hey, I'm a nurse of 22 years. I'm a healthcare worker of 30 years, 15, 6, all these people saying, yep, I plan on walking away from the profession. Or state employees saying, hey, I've been doing this for however long. Well, let me just make a quick caveat to the state employees. There's a little piece of me that is not heartbroken, and let me be super careful about this, because I don't think anyone, anywhere, anytime should be forced into a medical decision by the state. And that being said, as a state employee, obviously you are really subject to being, having the government's will imposed upon you. That's just the nature of the beast, right? And so to me, one of the outcomes of all of this if there's a bunch of state employees that are now really questioning whether or not they want to be employed by the state, man, I'm not so mad about that. Again, I don't want any of these people to be forced into it, and I think it's a shame that their livelihood is coming into question. But I think that, again, part of this whole philosophy, or this whole idea that the government is growing out of control, well, part of it is the amount of people that it employs. And so if it starts to do things that make it a less desirable place to be employed, and people start walking away, if buildings have to get shut down, if agencies come to a screeching halt because people are just walking away, I'm not so mad about that. I kind of like the idea of that. So again, a little bit of a nuanced thought there, but anyways, back to it. The video that I posted, hey, we should protest this. Again, a bunch of people getting on there and saying, hey, I have to go along with this. Some people were saying, and I have sympathy to that. Your livelihood depends on it. You got a mortgage, you got kids. As much of a freedom fighter I want to be, and as much as I would encourage people to, hey, stand your ground, stick to your principles, fight the good fight. I'm not in your shoes. I'm not dealing with the stress that you're dealing with and trying to support a family in the way that you are. I think it'll all work out. I think if you were to go, I'm going to stick to my guns. I don't want to leave. I'm gonna work here, but I'm gonna refuse to do this, and they have to give you the boot. I'm confident, again, if people have the right attitude, that it would all work out in the end. That they would find a better place to be employed, that they'd be happier, that they stuck to their principles and they didn't give in to the state's mandates. But them, along with a bunch of healthcare workers, were on this video saying, hey, I'm sticking to my guns, but I'm going to be looking for another job, don't know what I'm going to do, yada, yada, yada. So then the third video that I posted this week that gained a fair amount of traction was just a threat. And I said, hey, lots of people, based on this new mandate, lots of people are going to be looking for work, and hey, jump on here in the comments. Is your company hiring and not discriminating people based on their medical history? And so it was really cool because lots of people were on there talking and posting and connecting and all this stuff to try and make some connections and get people connected with opportunities so that they don't feel like they're being backed into a corner. So that warmed my heart, and I was super pumped to see some of that transpire. I don't know if anything super legit or concrete came of it for anyone, but if it did, that would blow my mind, and that would have made all of this worth it. That I've been kind of tooling around with these social media and channels and all that. If that happened even just once, wow, that would be way worth it to me. So that would be super exciting. And I have a bit of a desire to maybe acknowledge and address some of the criticisms that rolled in. I didn't record any of them, so none of them come directly to mind. But I guess I'm not surprised, because I guess I know these people exist, but I am maybe disappointed to see the amount of people who will get on any one of these videos and say, hey, hey, good riddance, or hey, I'm vaccinated and I want to be around only vaccinated people, so I'm glad that all these mandates are coming down. There was a fair amount of, not a ton, because honestly there was way more support in the opposite, and there was even some people who said, hey, I've been vaccinated, but I support everyone else's freedom to choose, and I will lay down my life to make sure that everyone else has the freedom to choose and shouldn't be forced one way or the other. So I think, just to break down a little bit, the opposition is, again, my biggest problem with this whole notion is that it's the government using their leverage and their power and their force and their coercive forces to impose this mandate on everyone within its own sphere of influence, but then as far as humanly possible beyond that sort of defined sphere of influence, and you just see around the corner where is it coming next? Where are they going to impose it on other businesses and this and that? And just try and impose this on everyone else. And so to maybe clarify my position, I don't have a problem. This is what I've started to say. I'm not anti-vaccine. I'm just pro-freedom. Right? I'm pro-freedom to choose. And I think that, if everyone were left up to their own devices, and if everyone had the freedom to choose what they did with themselves, and then what they did with the organizations that they had influence over, that we would all be perfectly happy. If there was bars in Capitol Hill that said, hey, we only want vaccinated people, and we're going to ask for proof of this or that, I might think that's a little distasteful. I wouldn't patronize that business, but there might be a bunch of people who, and people from all over, who love that idea. Again, these people in the comments, I only want to associate with people who have been vaccinated. Great, they'll all go to that bar, and then they can all hang out, and they'll be happy to be there. And then the many other places that don't require it, people would just be free to come and go as they please. So like in that case scenario where in the private market, if someone, hey, the owner of that bar, that was and their staff, if they got together and said, hey, as a group of people, this is something we feel strongly about. We want to create a space that all of our customers are comfortable with. We feel like a majority of our customers will support this, and they make that decision. That's great. What I have a problem with is the government doing whatever it can, and so I guess it hasn't gotten too far into this, but I see it coming next with whether it's bars or gyms or wherever it is. But if the government were to come down and say, no, hey, businesses have to do that, because now maybe you have a bar up in Snohomish where the owner and the staff and the suppliers and the vendors and all that, they go, we don't care. We're not none of us are at risk, or this is a risk we're willing to assume to just be around other human beings with all the germs and bacteria that come along with that. We want a free bar. We want to open in free bar, and all the customers that dine there, they say, hey, we don't mind either. We don't want to be in a place that requires the government to force an establishment to say, hey, show your papers, hey, show your card. We're happy to shop there. And the issue becomes when you force that bar to do it, now you're putting a strain on the social fabric, because now the bar and all their staff are unhappy with that. All of the customers who come and go are unhappy with that. They maybe lose business because they have to do it. And which would come to my next point, which is, hey, if that's the case, it's that bar's responsibility to not do that, to not require that, and to be civil but disobey any of these mandates that come down. So I feel like maybe I had one more point as I was riffing on that, but I'm kind of losing it. And hey, we've already gone for 53 minutes and 30 seconds, so I'll wrap it up there and leave whatever other material there is for next week. And I'm sure things are just going to get crazier and crazier. So with that being said, once again, I appreciate anyone who has tuned into this. I hope that by spacing it out and just doing one a week and giving myself a little more time to bunch up a handful of topics and maybe be a bit more long-winded, which I enjoy doing, is good for you guys. And yeah, hope you got something out of it. If you have any thoughts or comments or insights or questions, feel free to throw them in the conversation. In the comments, and to keep the conversation going. But with all that being said, I hope you're all well. I hope you're having a productive summer and have a productive week lined up. And I will leave you with that I, for anyone tuning into this, wherever you are, if you're in the United States, if some of these measures are coming down, if there's any way that you can in your life resist these measures, not go along with these what I feel are gross overreach in government mandates, I fully support that. I fully support people in any means necessary, resisting these, tyrannical measures that are coming down from, at least our state government, but I'm sure the federal government. So I will leave you with that. I hope that, you find ways to do that in your daily life. But otherwise, I hope you're well. Hope you're staying productive, and I will see you all next week. Cheers.